Welcome back to the Gamery. We're very close to figuring out who done it, and now it's just a matter of figuring out the motive and figuring out the murderer. Edward Hamilton
works for the Observer, editor-in-chief. On the evening Miss Falcone went missing, I probably worked till 6 p.m. Then I asked Sam Shepard over for a few beers since my family was still up at our cottage on Wrangley Lake in Maine. He also helped me set a trap for the pesky raccoon that kept getting in the house. So he's close with Sam Shepard. Truth be told, the reason he kept getting in the house was because the kids kept letting him in. They thought he was cute and started feeding him. My wife let them too until she found him defecating on the kitchen table. She told me in no uncertain terms that she did not want to see that creature anywhere near our house once she got back. Later that night, after Sam and I heard the trap shut, we brought the coon out to the woods across town and set him free. Shortly after we got back, Sam went on home and I went up to bed soon thereafter. I was in bed under the covers by around 11 p.m. Unfortunately, the next day when Ruth and the kids got back, there he was again, the raccoon, not Sam, eagerly awaiting them on the front porch. The kids were overjoyed, my wife was not. You don't even want to know the look she shot me. So basically he hung out with Sam, but Sam went home early.
What's this whole raccoon business?
I don't know, it's so random.
He heard the trap shut, and then they brought him out into the woods across town.
Let's find out where Hamilton lives.
He's pretty close.
We just know that they went to the woods across town. Shortly after they got back, Sam left his house and he went to bed around 11. So basically Sam was at his house like right around 11 p.m.
Sam is here, who is quickly turning into a suspect.
Witness statement from Sam Shepard. I've known Edward Hamilton for over 11 years since he started working for the Robin Falls Observer. My great-grandfather started the paper back in 1865 and has been in the family ever since. When Dad passed on back in 36, I was already working in law enforcement and didn't have a nose for news, but I turned operations over to Ed. Couldn't have put a better man in charge of my family's legacy, and over the years he's become a trusted friend of mine. On the night Miss Falcone went missing, I was over at Ed's house. We needed to capture a raccoon that his kids had become quite fond of, but his wife had not, so she wanted it gone before they got back from the cabin. She'd taken them up to the lake for a few weeks before school was to be back in session, and Ed and I had been putting off the deed the whole time. The deed. Me even more so because I was bitten during my last encounter with the raccoon and my right index finger was infected so bad they had to cut it off. So it's not him. Anyway, that night was D-Day for us. We set the trap, sat out on the front porch, drank beer, and waited. My wife had sent over an apple pie for us. Neither one of us could stand her apple pie. Oh, that's a lie. He made a statement. It says, Sheriff Sam Shepard's wife says she got a recipe no one can beat.
The wife said.
Oh, I see. But we never had the heart to tell her, so we put the whole darn thing in the trap. And within an hour after doing so, we had ourselves a raccoon. At least our raccoon liked her pie. He had most of it gone by the time we'd gotten him released into the woods out behind the baseball field on the other side of town. He probably spent the night with indigestion. After that, I dropped Ed back at his place around 11, give or take, and headed home. And by the way, anyone here who wants to keep their badge won't mention the pie incident to my wife. So they traveled to the baseball field.
It's like all the way up here.
Oh yeah, that's far.
So that's a pretty good alibi, unless Sam is lying.
No, because it corroborates. Oh, but they're like best friends.
I don't know. Plus, he's left-handed too.
Okay, suspect interview. Good afternoon, Ed. Can you please say your full name into the microphone?
Good afternoon, Walter. My full name is Edward Albert Hamilton. Not really sure why you called me down, but can we make it quick? Got my 10th wedding anniversary with Ruth tomorrow, and I thought I'd splurge and get her something real special. I've been putting it off all week, and Jordan's jeweler is closing soon.
10 years tomorrow, huh? Well, I'll be. That's great, Ed. Ruth's one lucky lady.
Because she married me, no doubt.
Hardly. It's because you spoil her rotten. You just got that cabin on the lake, and now you're buying her jewelry. Ellen's going to start making life miserable for me if I don't start spoiling her too.
Sorry, Walter. Can we please speed this up though? I really want to pick the ring up tonight so I can surprise her with it at breakfast tomorrow.
I'll do what I can to keep it brief.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
So here's the trouble, Ed. As you know, Veronica Falcone's motorcycle turned up and it's looking like somebody killed her. It's no secret around town that the two of you had a bit of a disagreement, so I've got to do my part here and get the full story from you so I can complete my investigation. I'll make it quick. Can you tell me how you met Miss Falcone?
Well, I just come back from my lunch break at Brewski's and saw her motorbike parked outside the Observer. I walked into my office where my new writer, Norman Chase, was sitting behind my desk interviewing a woman I didn't recognize. Hadn't asked permission to interview anyone or even use my office. Anyway, I asked what he was doing, and that's when he sprang up and introduced me to Miss Veronica Falcone, the celebrated queen of espionage, as he put it.
I never met her. What was your first impression? I hear it wasn't too favorable.
No, it wasn't. For one thing, she dressed more like a man than a woman. Seemed full of herself too. I think Chase was also full of her because he couldn't stop saying how she'd be perfect for the investigative reporter job and that she'd be a shoo-in for the position. As I arrived, he was about to give her a tour of our printing presses in the basement as if she was already on the payroll. The nerve.
Well, Ed, he sort of had a point. Being a former spy and all would make for a great investigative reporter. The whole country loved her writing in the Old Glory Gazette. Honestly, you must have been crazy not to hire her.
Walter, just because she was a spy doesn't mean she'd have what it takes to be a journalist. Plus, she was a woman. I don't hire women.
Forgive me, Ed, but last time I checked, your secretary Rita was a woman, and as well as, what's her name who writes the advice column?
That's Eloise, and she's hardly a journalist. Besides, I decide who works for me and who doesn't. Not some wet behind the ears writer who doesn't know the difference between a typewriter and a pair of toenail clippers.
So how did you handle it?
I introduced myself, told her I was quite sorry that she'd be misinformed and there were no positions available. And that's when she narrowed her eyes, smiled smugly at me, and asked if I was afraid her investigative skills would show me up. The nerve.
I hear that wasn't the end of it.
No, it wasn't the end of it. That one became a huge stabbing thorn in my side.
Can you please elaborate?
The next week, I got an application in the mail from a gentleman going by the name Jed Burge. He had excellent credentials from New York City, where he used to work as an investigative reporter. Said he wanted to escape the life of the big city. I was ready to hire him, so I set up an interview, which is only going to be a formality.
And did you hire him?
You know darn well what happened, Walter. There was no Jedberg. It was that insufferable woman. She showed up for the interview with that smug smile on her face. Made me the laughingstock of the town. She stole my dignity that day, not to mention the respect of my staff. And on top of that, she lied to get the interview.
Well, not sure she lied since Jed Burge was her pen name as a reporter in the city. I don't see why you wouldn't hire someone with those credentials, Ed, woman or not.
Get this straight, Walter. I'm the editor, and it's up to me and me alone whom I hire and whom I don't hire. And why exactly am I here anyway? So you can have another laugh too about the whole thing? I don't have time for this. I'm not the only guy in the town who hated her.
Well, there is one tiny little thing, Ed. A witness says you threatened her.
What incarnation are you talking about?
An anonymous source of mine says you pushed over a chair, threw your mug at the wall, got in her face, and yelled some kind of threat. Not exactly friendly, Ed.
Who said that? Darn it, Walter. It was that quad Norman Chase.
Can't reveal an anonymous source, Ed. You know how that works.
She fancied herself a tough cookie, so I spoke tough to her.
Now, come on, Ed. That's no way to talk to a lady, and you know it. Anyways, there's one more thing before I let you go. Can you tell me your whereabouts the night of August 26th between 10 and midnight, the night Miss Falcone disappeared?
Let me think. I believe I worked till about 6 that night. Then invited Sam Shepard over for a few beers since Ruth and the kids were still up at the lake. We trapped the raccoon that had been sneaking into the house and drove up north of town to release it out behind the baseball field. After we got back, Sam left about 11 or so, and I went to bed shortly thereafter. He can confirm it. Sam, not the raccoon. Will there be anything else, or can I go now?
That's it for now. Wish Ruth a happy anniversary from Ellen and me.
Will do. Say hi to Ellen for me. Okay, let's go over this. This is from Norman Chase. Dear Captain Dixon, I'm hesitant to write this letter, but in light of Veronica Falcone's case turning into a murder investigation, I feel it's my duty. I would greatly appreciate if this correspondence could remain completely off the record. You see, it's about my boss, Edward Hamilton, and if word got back to him, I'm sure I'd get the axe. Edward had it out for Miss Falcone right from the start. At first, I thought he was just jealous since the Observer isn't exactly a global news source, and Miss Falcone is a highly accomplished journalist. If you ask me, she deserved a Pulitzer for exposing that counterfeiting ring in New York City last year, and she'd probably have one if she were a man. But Edward's issues seemed to go beyond jealousy. There was something seriously wrong with how agitated she made him, but there was far more to it than her just being a woman, and this started back before she even tried to trick him. I can understand why he'd be so upset about being duped by her like that in front of the staff, but he really lost it. Once he realized she was Jed Burge, he flew into a maniacal rage. He upended his chair and threw his coffee mug across the room, then got right in her face and yelled that she needed to go back where she came from, or she'd wish she never came back from the war alive. She wasn't fazed at all though. She just smirked at him, then turned and left, which irked him all the more. He seethed about it for weeks, and after the motorcycle was found, he actually said he thought it was better this way. Again, please don't let this get back to Edward. I know he's close with the sheriff, and well, I really don't want to lose my job. I've got 5 kids at home and another on the way. Sincerely, Norman Chase.
So I guess one of her greatest accomplishments as a journalist was that she exposed the counterfeiting ring in New York City.
So that's why she had the bills.
Okay, we went through all the witnesses. Or no, sorry, suspects.
Alright, so let's review what was she investigating. So we think it has something to do with the counterfeit money. According to Chase's letter, she took down a ring in New York. We also saw the serial number here matches the one found in the motorcycle. So the one found in the body matches the motorcycle, which means they're probably counterfeit. We also see she was looking for marriage records. Also in the night of disappearance, she's going to take pictures.
What was she trying to take a picture of if we think that what she was trying to investigate was counterfeit?
When you know the killer's motive for murdering, and then it says back off. So back off meaning the motive is what she was investigating, which we think is this counterfeit
money.
ring. Okay. Yeah. So do we have enough? Let's go to the site. Who killed Veronica and why? Do you know what Veronica was investigating that cost her life? Pick 2 items that prove she was investigating and solve the case. Just want to try these.
I think you need these two for sure, though. But the
Okay.
photo, okay,
Items
yeah.
found in motorcycle. Evidence report.
Yeah.
Okay. Check answer. You're so close.
Okay. Confirm which suspect killed Veronica and close the case.
Wait, do we get any info?
What about the third one? Do not open until after completing objective 3. Okay.
Did we complete it?
No. We still have to figure out who killed her.
So we know that it's because of the counterfeit ring. Who would be involved with the money? We think people connected to the bank, right?
Well, Evelyn Churchill has a connection because of her dad.
Smithers, he works at the bank.
Okay, what about...
She actually has no money. She's poor. She wouldn't write the letter because her issue was about the house,
estate,
not about what she was investigating. And she's left-handed. Maybe we should go off of...
right or left?
Yeah. If it's right hand, then we only have 2 options. It's either Smithers or Evelyn Churchill.
Where does it say again about her dad?
Right here.
So it just says bank president, but that's it.
Former bank president in New York.
That's his birthplace, doesn't mean it.
But he's from New York, and that's where she took down the ring, counterfeit ring.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Her father died. I'm trying to also loop in the marriage record. This wouldn't be a part of the marriage record, right? Because they didn't get married.
But maybe she was looking for this because of her dad. She's right-handed. We have the photo that's right-handed. She could be tied to this counterfeit ring because her dad was a former bank president and he's from New York, where we know from Chase's letter she took down a counterfeit ring in New York. So there's plenty motive to get revenge on her. If she already took it down, what more is she investigating? Maybe there's another counterfeit ring happening in Robin Falls. And then why did she need to go to New York? Probably just to show the people she worked with there. She wanted to get evidence.
Or maybe she has a foot in being a journalist. She was successful in New York, and so she tried to get a journalist position in Robin Falls, but obviously because of Hamilton not wanting to hire her, maybe she wanted to blast the whole thing in a journalist company that would take her.
But she needed photos first. Why would she go towards Fletcher's family restaurant on that night if she was trying to get photos of something? She parked in front of the restaurant, but there's so many things around it.
The bank trust is there, so maybe she wanted something at the bank trust.
The Observer is there, where Hamilton worked, the boarding house, but we don't think Mildred had anything to do with it. Smithers, his house is like way across town. So if he was home at 9, I mean, I don't know how far. This is like 2 miles.
And then Churchill is how close?
Churchill lives in the middle.
That's closer.
But she was walking and she was near Fletcher's around 10. And between 10 and 10:30, which is when Mr. Davidson walked her home. Oh no, she got home at 10:30.
Well, 10:30 or 11.
That's why I thought, 10 and 10:30, I thought she had no alibi.
So Mr. Davidson, this was sometime after 10 p.m. He escorted me home. I checked on Mama once I got home, and I must have been around 10:30 or 11.
Can we get his
statement? He usually heads out around 9:30 to 10, covering several miles. You think it's Evelyn? Or you think it's Smithers?
Let's look at Smithers a little more. Aside from all the super creepiness,
I think because he's creepy, it's not him.
I think so too. Like, why would he threaten her for what she's investigating? He's more concerned about his feelings and her returning his love. That's actually what he threatens her about. So him writing the red note doesn't really make sense. But then connecting Evelyn to this money ring.
But then is it too obvious that Evelyn would be the one? The ex-fiancé?
Is it reverse psychology? What happened to that missing engagement ring? I thought that would come back.
And then with Evelyn too, you know, she actually made the statement.
Yeah.
I hope you drowned out.
I guess everybody knew she said that, so someone tried to frame her.
I think I want to go with Evelyn.
I think so too. Okay, so she's right-handed. We can connect her to New York, banks, and money, plenty of motive, but to write that letter saying back off.
Evelyn's angle would be because obviously Joey Caruso dumped her, but then all of a sudden you throw in like counterfeiting into the mix and it's like kind of weird, right? And then if you have the other option, Smithers, he has really no connection to counterfeit money.
But he works at Bank and Trust. That's his only connection.
The closest I think is Evelyn, but I just don't understand. Like, it's still a question mark why, you know.
Like, I don't feel 100%.
It doesn't connect as well. And then just to be clear, the other suspects who are left-handed, do they have connections to the bank? Like Mildred, not really, right? And then the other one is Hamilton. It works at the Observer, but no connection.
There's no mention of the bank. All right, well, we're just gonna do it. Evelyn Churchill, you done it.
Oh.
I guess Smithers? Do you want to try or do you want to take a hint?
Give me a hint.
Hint? The serial number on the $10 bill is relevant to one of the suspects. Oh, they even wrote relevant, but we did use it already. So single $10 bill, 1934 A series, serial number E11121937H.
E for Evelyn.
Smithers?
Oh! E-H.
Oh.
Edward Hamilton.
But he's left-handed. Is that
Is it?
it? If that's it.
So all this information and backstory does not lead us to the killer, but the initials. I think maybe it is.
Okay, how is he tied to the bank?
Well, they just say that, or the Norman Chase person said that, oh, he particularly had it out for her even before she tricked him.
He doesn't own a firearm.
Maybe he stole it from Sam Shepard.
When he was drinking with him?
But see, now we're just adding our own story.
Okay, the only reason why we're considering him is because of the hint.
And the initials.
It's very obvious it says EH here. So now it's like we're trying to dig just to make sure. We already got one wrong guess. But he went to the baseball field.
But he came back. He was dropped off back home by Sam. But he lives right next to the Fletcher Street. He could have just walked there and walked back home. Is it his family that can corroborate that? Were they home already?
They're not home. They're all out of town. So he's by himself.
Alrighty then.
Just go for it then. Edward Hamilton, you done it. You did it!
Ooh, there's a YouTube video.
Edward Hamilton killed Veronica Falcone because she caught him counterfeiting money. Congratulations, your breakthrough on this case just made the news. You may now open bonus envelope C. Oh, there's more stuff.
Wedding date and initial. How do we know his wedding date? Oh, because it's 10-year anniversary.
He was not very creative in creating serial numbers.
1947, and then he said
his 10-year.
What about all the backstory?
Let's see what's in the bonus envelope.
Dear investigator, you did it. Somehow you managed to solve 2 murders and uncover one of the largest unsolved counterfeiting operations in the history of the U.S. Treasury, and you saved my department. After you alerted us that both of Veronica's $10 bills had identical serial numbers matching Ed Hamilton's anniversary date, we brought his son in for questioning. He provided a complete statement detailing his father's deathbed confessions to counterfeiting and other horrible acts he and Sheriff Shepard committed.
Knew they were in cahoots.
Yeah. Justice for Veronica has been a long time coming. It's hard to imagine what it must have been like for her. Despite the danger, her courage to go after those men is truly inspiring to me. In doing so, Veronica gave her life, and the truth would have remained buried with her if you hadn't uncovered it. Your detective skills have even altered the landscape of the local Robin Falls community. Back in 1953, Robin Falls Park was renamed Hamilton Park after Edward Hamilton, who had become a notable philanthropist and was voted mayor of Robin Falls in 1949. A statue of his likeness was even erected in the park. I'm happy to say the town council unanimously voted to take down his statue and erect a new one in the likeness of Veronica Falcone. They even renamed it the Veronica Falcone Memorial Park. The case made national news and brought a lot of positive publicity to our unit. Thank you for bringing justice to the amazing Veronica Falcone and for saving my family's good name. And thank you for redeeming the Connecticut Cold Case Criminal Investigation Unit. Your work today will result in countless other cold case murderers being brought to justice. Your friend and admirer, Special Agent Morgan Cantori. Cool.
So Morgan is actually,
What?
these are all women, right? And that's Veronica Falcone's statue.
Witness statement form, full name Edward Hamilton Jr. To whom it may concern, what I am about to reveal to you were my father's dying words to me. Once the officers started asking about my father counterfeiting money, I figured I should come forward with everything I knew. I should have done this years ago, but I just couldn't do it to my mother. Maybe you would have done the same in my situation. On the night of August 26, 1947, my father shot and killed Veronica Falcone. He and Samuel Shepard buried her body and threw her motorcycle into Jackson Ravine. I knew it. So it had nothing to do with
Sam was shady,
Yeah.
but okay.
But it had nothing to do with the raccoon, and they just corroborated their
I think so
story.
too. I think they corroborated their story.
Then they set it up to look like Joey Caruso murdered her, and they staged his jailhouse suicide and confession. So basically Sam was the one that staged it. My father explained to me that he never intended any harm. A small plan to make a few bucks got out of control, and he did what he needed to protect his family. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but this is his story. My father and Samuel Shepard were using the printing press at the Observer to counterfeit $10 bills.
Oh, they did mention the printing press. How Chase was showing Veronica the printing press. And he got mad.
Of course, my mother and I didn't know. We were told the two went fishing one day and reeled a bag out of Daly Pond stuffed with 20,000 $10 bills. In retrospect, it was quite odd since they'd never been fishing before or after that one time, and we were all instructed to keep it a secret. In any event, they knew Veronica Falcone was onto their counterfeiting, so they left a threatening note in our mailbox. It didn't seem to have any effects, so they decided to halt operations after one more night of printing until they could figure a way to drive her out of town, but they were a day late and $1 short. It was around 10:30 on the night she went missing. My father and Sam had been printing bills on the press when my father remembered he needed to set a trap at our house for a raccoon. He promised my mother he would catch before we came home from Maine the next day. When my father returned from our house, he spotted Veronica Falcone's motorcycle in front of Fletcher's family restaurant. Knowing she must have been snooping around, he parked his car down the street and crept down the road toward the paper. From a distance, he could make out her figure crouched down in front of the basement window where the printing presses were. He knew she was onto them. My father never carried a gun, but apparently Sam armed him with one when they started counterfeiting. He swore he had no intention of using it that night when he pulled it out of the glove box. He was only going to threaten her. But as he crept closer and saw she was about to take a picture of their operation, he panicked, and the next thing he knew, she was dead. My father and Sheriff Shepard put the gun, the red note, and a few other incriminating items into a bag and buried it with her body behind Fletcher's family restaurant. It was Sam's idea to drop her motorcycle into the ravine. Not sure where he got that idea. They loaded it into the back of Sam's truck and drove it out to Fallview Road, where they sent it down over the cliff. They assumed no one would find it for months and could blame the missing body on wildlife in the area by that time. But they ran into a complication when Veronica's boyfriend, Joey Caruso, started telling everyone Veronica had been investigating something big in town, and he'd seen the threatening note they left in her mailbox. So he and Sam decided to set Caruso up. He reported that he had worked on her brakes just before she went missing, so they climbed into the ravine late one night and severed the brake cable. Sheriff Shepard assured my father that it'd be an open and shut case and the whole problem would go away, but when my father found himself one of the prime suspects in the murder, he became more and more afraid of getting caught. My father convinced the sheriff they had one more dirty deed to perform in order to put it all behind them. The night Joey Caruso was brought in for murdering Veronica Falcone, Sam knocked him out and together they hung him from the rafters. My father wrote "I killed her" on the wall of the jail cell and said he couldn't stomach to write anything again after that night. He went into early retirement from the paper and started donating large sums of money to worthy causes, perhaps out of guilt. As a final note, Sam had been dead for years when my father confessed all this to me. His family knew nothing of this either. I've been heavily burdened carrying this all around with me for so long, but now at least it's all out in the open. May God grant Sam's children the strength to get through this. They adored him.
Wow.
All these years.
There's two things that I was thinking about. One is the right hand, because the gun would be in the left hand. So you're like holding it and then you're like that. Okay, but they didn't even explain that. And the second thing was Edward wrote, "I killed her," because he was also forging documents. Hamilton's statement. No, it's different writing. So he was good at forging too, I guess. Or the R.
Was it Hamilton or was it Sam Shepard?
My father wrote, "I killed her," on the wall of the jail cell. So I was just wondering, but the R's look different. But yeah, this handwriting looks very different. Okay, let's watch.
We begin tonight with an amazing story involving two unsolved murders. Investigators have just discovered that Veronica Falcone, a famous World War II spy, was murdered on August 26, 1947 in Robin Falls, Connecticut. Miss Falcone had uncovered a plot by Hamilton and the town sheriff, Samuel Shepard, to counterfeit $10 bills using the newspaper printing presses. Hamilton and Shepard buried Falcone nearby and dumped her motorcycle into the Jackson Ravine. When special agents from the Connecticut Cold Case Investigation Unit teamed up with a savvy independent investigator to uncover the truth. We'll have a statement from the governor later in the broadcast.
Nice work, detective. Okay, well, there you go. We solved it.
With one hint.
One hint. I don't know, it would have been nice if like all the things we were discovering had to do more with how we find out who the killer is. I just felt like we couldn't make that connection until they just revealed all this stuff all of a sudden, that he was counterfeiting money. We kind of knew that there was something shady going on with him and Sam Shepard. We knew Sam Shepard was shady.
Sam Shepard was a person of interest, although he wasn't one of the suspects, but I had a feeling about him. But we just couldn't connect Hamilton.
I mean, we kind of thought that they were colluding with each other on their story. It seemed like such a ridiculous story.
It was random when we read about the raccoon. It was like, what did you do on the night of...
And they're like, oh, we went all the way to the baseball field, like across town.
It's like, you could have just buried the raccoon in your backyard, which is the woods.
It's just a raccoon.
I guess that should have been a tell. But then again, that's more of a hunch rather than connecting the dots.
All right, well, there you go. If you guys caught any other connections that we missed, don't forget to leave comments down below. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to our channel. We have plenty of other cases, so maybe you'll see us do another one. And of course, we hope to see you again in the gamery.